I'm asking you one more time, Dirk Dog. Where are the bloody diamonds? You talk. Tell me, or I'll put your head right through this stone wall.
I ain't telling you nothing.
Well, if you won't talk, I better bring the Sarge in.
Yeah? Bring him in. Hell, bring all the Waterdeep watching. Bring the black staff in. Because the only confession you're getting out of me is that I wet the bed until the age of 14.
You'll tell us where those diamonds... 14, really?
Yeah.
You'll talk. They all do in the end.
Never.
Oh, come on, please.
What?
No. Well, my character needs these diamonds to revivify Theo's character.
What on earth is happening? Who's talking to me right now?
There's enough left to make a pretty necklace.
Oh, diamonds would suit me.
There might actually be enough left to make a stolen matching set.
Ooh, if only someone knew where they were. Seriously, I don't have them.
Bugger. All right, Walt, you're free to go.
Finally, enough of this game. I'm going to go get those diamonds and sleep with them and wee on them.
That's an accurate representation of what happens at our D&D games. We've actually not played D&D together in a long time.
We've only played the one session, and it was like in lockdown.
Yeah, we just kind of were like, we're really bored. Someone run a one-shot. That was essentially what it was. No, you actually, I remember this. You played a character that had like a Nicolas Cage vibe about
I played
him.
a sorcerer with no social awareness. I had intentionally made my wisdom like 6 and my intelligence like 15 or something. And so he would like walk into a room and he could like, speak like 10 languages and stuff. But he'd walk right up to someone and go like, "Hi, is someone been involved in a murder here?" And like,
oh my God, was that Nicolas Cage?
Nicolas Cage, the socially awkward hero.
Can't remember his name, but it was great. Garrett Gray.
Clinton Flaverin Doval.
You remember? That's amazing.
Anyway, welcome to the Get Commanded podcast, not a D&D podcast, believe it or not. It's the GCP brought to you by POG, Palms Off Gaming, sponsor of this podcast. Put that thing back where it came from. Also help me. I'm your host, Walt.
Also help me.
Yeah.
Hello, Commander players. I'm the guy that was 26 years old when he realized banoffee pie is called banoffee pie because its main 2 ingredients are banana and toffee, and it's not called banoffee after some person or place. James.
Or maybe banana and toffee were named after banoffee.
Yeah, someone had a
Someone
banoffee
split
pie
it in half.
and like split the atom and realized bananas and
Holy
toffee
shit.
can exist.
We can grow a tree from half this pie.
Seriously though, banoffee pie, favorite dessert.
I don't even know. I've never heard of banoffee pie before.
It's incredibly English. I know,
Right, okay.
Actually, funnily enough, one of the listeners out there might actually remember the exact moment I realized this because it was when I was in England just last year, and I was at his house, and we had banoffee pie.
Oh, right, okay.
And it clicked in my brain, and I was like, I'm an idiot.
I love when the brain comes to conclusions about things that are like so much simpler than what we think. Anyway, we are not hosting a D&D podcast or a banoffee pie podcast. We play Commander, and the best way to watch us play Commander is over on twitch.tv/Get Commanded. As of the time this episode comes out, about 2 weeks ago, roughly?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago when this episode comes out.
We were streaming the Dockside Debacle 3 CH tournament. That was a blast, but we're itching for some casual Commander. That's what we mostly host this podcast for, and it's our favorite way to play.
By the time this episode comes out, we should actually have a schedule of upcoming streams for the month of March and like early April. So check our social media to
Twitter
see...
and Instagram. It'll definitely be on those 2 platforms, and probably we'll chuck it in Discord, but it's harder with Discord because we post everything we do in Discord. So
Discord gets that group text chat kind of vibe where it's like if you miss a day, you just accept the fact that there are things you've missed.
It's like,
you come back to it later.
If it's really important, someone will tell me about it. Anyway, we have an incoming transmission from the deep depths of the galaxy from the Space Commanders. It's time to get commanded.
mapping indicates there are things that Commander players choose to keep secret. What are your secrets, and what can we ascertain from them?
That is terrifying.
Straight up, what are you hiding,
Brain
Walt
mapping?
and James?
They said brain mapping.
They didn't say brain scanning. They said brain mapping.
That implies that they don't need to scan.
No,
they just kind of
just have the map.
of all of our brains.
Anyway, they want to know our secrets, and I guess what in classic Get Commanded fashion, they want to know what we can
There's
learn.
a lesson in everything.
There's a lesson in everything,
Yeah.
and a lesson in the secrets we keep. I
guess this is one of those kind of back and forth, take it in turns.
Yeah.
You have a thing, I have a thing.
Yes, we all have things.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
I reckon we just have to take it in turns, but let's give it a bit of a structure.
Okay.
So an idea. So I guess the first thing that we'll have to do is confess one of our secrets.
Of course.
This is going to be a bit challenging, I guess, because
Yeah.
we're going to have to dig into the dark parts of ourselves, find out what we've been hiding from not only each other, but other
The
players,
world.
the
Yeah,
world,
the
our
world at
listeners.
large.
Yeah, we might not even have told these secrets to our own play group. Even.
No, these are definitely, not deep, dark secrets, but things that we just don't say out loud, I guess, is probably a big part of it. I guess we should touch on why it is a secret, why we haven't told anyone.
What kept it inside.
Yeah, why didn't we let anyone know about it? And I guess the classic Get Commanded slant is how can we learn from this confession and how can we get better moving forwards now
How
that
can
we
we
know
have better
that?
games because
Yeah.
we are aware of this and we can improve on ourselves? I guess this is kind of like a welcome to the Get Commanded Self-Improvement Podcast. You can buy our book that has 30 blank pages that you can fill out yourself for just $19.99 on Amazon.
Positive affirmations. Yes. Anyway,
I was so expecting you to do an ASMR thing there.
they've had enough of that. I think the listeners.
Should we? All right. You go first. I'm nervous. I was going to say I'll go first, but I'm actually quite nervous to
Okay.
start this.
All right.
My hot takes in the hot takes episode were blistering hot.
Yes.
And I caught some flack. So you admit your sins. Confess.
I've got to be the one up the front this time. Oh gosh, speaking of CDH or hot takes, this one maybe is another one. Look, for those who know me really well, maybe it's not that shocking. I always hate combos, even when I tell you it's fine.
Even Tornos ones?
Yeah.
No.
Look,
okay.
The reason I kept this a secret is I don't share, it's that classic, what's the phrase that your parents always use? If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's that, but I kind of have a version of that I sort of live by, which is if there's not a productive outcome from sharing this, a reasonable thing you can ask of someone, then is it worth even saying? So I obviously will still vent about stuff to my partner and everything, but I will tell her hey, I'm just venting here. I don't need solutions.
I don't need advice. Just be a wall that I can throw stuff at.
Yeah, and I know I can't fix any of this.
Yeah.
This is just my life right now, and I've chosen to live it this way, and this is why I'm annoyed about it.
Sure.
So I guess I don't tell people if someone wins with a combo, I don't want to be oh, why'd you do that, idiot? I don't think it's a reasonable thing for me to ask of someone to not do combos, because I think I've already asked enough by, we are big proponents of Rule Zero, which means that at least when a combo happens, it was on the cards.
So if you're doing a good Rule Zero and you have combos that are infinite instant wins, is that, I'm assuming that's the kind of combo you're talking about.
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
You're not talking
infinite
about
combos. Yeah.
You're not talking about an insane, awesome value piece I don't know, Orcish Bowmasters plus a wheel.
No.
That's not an infinite, doesn't win you on the spot.
No.
But does 21 damage wherever you want it.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick.
No, talking specifically about infinite or, near infinite combos. The kind of combos that are likely to bring the game to an end.
Sure.
These are the combos that come up ideally, if you do it right, in our Rule Zero template that we are big proponents of. When we ask, how does your deck win? That's certainly where you should be saying, it might normally be combat damage, but I do have this infinite mana combo in here and that kind of thing. I guess I've kept this a secret because I don't feel that there's much more I can ask of people.
Because you've already done the Rule Zero.
Yeah, I've asked
and
people...
you should feel better about it being highlighted.
Yes, and I do. I do. If I lose to an infinite combo that I was aware of, it does feel better than it
Not
normally
knowing
does.
it was coming.
But seriously, every time a combo ends the game, I'm just okay.
Sure. It's a bit of that game felt like a nothing for you.
Yeah, and like it's not always, and there are times where I've gone like, okay, I see the steps you had to go through to find this, and like haven't seen that happen in that way before. But as a general rule, I just don't like them.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I see them, I'm just like, all right. I will say, I probably should have been clear here. CDH, obviously, I don't care. Like,
yeah, it's a different way of playing. It's a different mindset. Walt's mindset on combos is in a casual sense, but CDH has the mindset of anything goes.
Yeah.
You can't play CDH without that mindset.
No. And so it would be very silly of me to keep getting upset about the game ending with a combo when almost all CDH games will end with combos.
Well, then you're not playing CDH.
No,
everyone
I'm
else is
actively
trying to
avoiding
play
it.
CDH,
Yeah,
and you're
I'm
not.
I'm policing the table in some way.
So what can we do to learn from the fact that you don't like combos, infinite instant win combos in casual? How can your games and other people's games be better because of this? What's the lesson?
I think I sort of already knew this. I think I just need to avoid the higher end of the power level scale, which I sort of already do. But you know, lately, especially we've gone to a convention, obviously in CanCon, it's harder to be selective about who you play with and the power level that you play in. You kind of just have to match whoever's in front of you because that's the pod, you know? And so I was ending up in more games like this. But yeah, I think I just need to be really upfront with myself and say, look, if it's not CDH, I'd kind of rather be playing a pretty low-powered game.
Yep.
And I probably just need to be really even more actively searching for them, you know? Like, not just being like, oh, I hope I find one tonight.
Find the play group that does play those janky, weird decks.
And actively, you know, like when I'm going to the game store, like message someone and be like, hey, if you can hold a spot for me, I know that your Tornos deck is kind of the power level I feel like tonight. Can we play that tonight? Rather than like sitting down with someone, they pull out their deck, describe it, and I go, I know I'm going to have a bad time. You know, I think I need to be like clear with myself and not pretend I'm someone that I'm not. You know what I mean?
I think that's a fair thing to take away from this. I think that you're trying to just make sure that you're having a good time with other people that also want to have the same kind of good time.
Yeah.
I think that's like the best piece of advice for like if you're playing at a kitchen table, these problems usually don't come up. So maybe like kitchen table magic is like the best place for you.
I think it probably is.
Yeah. But like game stores and conventions, you have to put in a little bit more effort. And I think that maybe that's the lesson is you got to put in that effort of finding the right pod.
Yeah. And probably, like, to be fair, the appeal of the LGS and the convention is you just rock up and you know there'll be people to play with. Whereas, like, the sort of tough bit about kitchen table magic is you have to line it all up, you know?
Yeah.
Someone has to have a table and have a few hours spare and invite everyone and message everyone and coordinate times and send
be willing
addresses.
to put in the pizza order.
Yeah. Like there's some work associated with hosting, but maybe I've got to put that work in more often, I guess.
Yeah. I love you do have a group chat that hasn't been used yet this year.
Has it not?
I don't think we've used that group chat yet.
Gosh.
We've got like a kitchen table group chat from like just with Walt and his friends. And I love that kitchen table vibe. That's awesome.
Oh, and it's like just the right amount of people in the group chat where you know that you'll find a game, but it won't. It's very rare that it's like 10 people being like, I'll play, and then you're like, how do I choose which 3?
Sometimes we have one pod, sometimes we'll have 2, but like usually it's 4 people and it's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. All right, I've ripped the band-aid off. It's your turn.
Okay.
What's your big confession, James?
I've got one, but I hate doing this, especially on a friggin' podcast. If we were just doing this in private, I'd be totally fine to tell this to you, but I know that the people I play with and like people at conventions are going to hear this. My confession is I use politics quite a lot when I'm about to win. And I guess I'll go straight into why I kept this a secret.
Sure.
Ages ago, on one of the early episodes of Get Commanded, I said that I use politics a lot when I'm about to lose. It wasn't in this vein of I was admitting something for the point of a broadcast or
you
an
offered
episode.
that up yourself.
I just said it because I was like, okay, this is, part of the information that I can give to this group, right? And now everyone knows my secret that I use politics when I'm about to lose. So I had to learn how to stay quiet when I'm about to lose and go for more of a fly under the radar type approach with my gameplay, especially in that, oh shit, I could die to someone just swinging out at me.
Yeah.
And obviously the other reason why I kept the secret is naturally you don't want to reveal your hand, right? Like, you don't want to you don't want to tell people your secrets of how you play because then they'll be able to figure you out and kind of like use you a little bit.
Especially on a public forum like this.
Exactly. So like when I said that secret of I use politics when I'm about to lose, it made me change how I play. So then I kind of switched it to playing to use politics when I'm about to win. Like instead of keeping me alive, I use politics to get me over the line.
Right.
The other thing is I didn't really want to tell people that like after a game when we, finish a game and I win, I don't want to be saying, oh, a big part of the reason that I won there was because you were an idiot and thought I was thought I was telling you something truthful or something like that. But I kind of tricked you with my politics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to make people feel bad. I don't want people to feel like I'm using them.
Sure.
So that's why I kind of kept it a bit of a secret.
Do you think there's an argument that it feels worse to know that you're doing that and not telling us?
A little bit, but
you're telling us now.
I am telling you now, and this is like part of it. Like I'm confessing that there are probably games that if you've played with me, I may have won because I convinced you not to do something
alone
or like I've had so many situations where I've had a permanent on my board that's super problematic. Maybe you have pointed out to the table that it is problematic.
Usually will.
I've convinced the rest of the table that Walt's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's fine. It's not going to do anything to you. But over the course of 3 more turns, it did stuff. You know?
Yeah.
A great example of this is Dragon Spark Reactor. That card
always is the win con.
Yeah,
a good chunk of the time. Yeah.
Yeah, builds up a bunch of charge counters. You can sack it to do a bunch of damage, but it has to do it over time. So if you get rid of it early, it's terrible.
Let's kind of bolt 2 opponents or bolt an opponent and a creature. Whereas late game it can be like, okay, you and your creature and both your opponents take 12.
Yep. Can be pretty rough.
How do we make our games better as a result of knowing that you do tend to politic when you're about to win?
Look, I think now that I've said that I use politics in both areas, I actually think confessing this on a public platform has done me a service because now nobody knows when I'm going to use politics.
That's the real ulterior motive you had here, was for people to not know.
To reestablish that I am an enigma. You'll never figure me out. But I think the thing that I really want to start doing with politics, especially in casual, I think CDH again is the exception to the rule here, but in casual Commander, I think I want to use politics to make a game fair, to give more of a round table discussion than I've brought you into my meeting room, I'm sitting at the head of the table, and I'm commanding this political deal.
Yeah.
I think that, like, for me, that will avoid that thing of I don't want to make you feel bad, because if I've made a fair assessment of a threat, even if it's on my board, you can use your own judgment. That's still politics, right? That's still table talk.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think, maybe something I've started doing to kind of lead into this, I've become more of a backbencher in political conversations at the table at the moment. Like, I've not been an active leader in the political discussion. I've more been like, hey, Walt, what do you think of this?
Okay.
And I've started getting people to talk.
Right. So you're sort of like instigating the conversation, but not leading it. Because I guess that's the one way that people who are really good at politicking, and to be honest, we saw this a couple of weeks ago in that CDH stream when we were spectating Cooley, our friend Kulikovsky.
That was some incredible politicking.
But the thing that was happening is people were pointing out in the chat, like, okay, David Cooley is the name here. David's driving this conversation so hard that people either like completely distrust him or just check out.
Yeah.
They just go like, I'm not even talking to you anymore. I can't engage with this. Whereas there's probably a more astute and maybe more polite way of doing this in casual games is to check in on the pod and go like, hey, what do you think of this?
Hey, you've got priority right now.
Yeah.
Do you want to do anything?
Is there anything you want to do? And
just make it super chill.
Yeah.
Not forceful. You're not coming at, you're not in the Senate screaming at the Speaker of the House or it's more of a passive approach to politics. I think I still want to engage in politics. That's a really fun part.
It's part of who you are as a Commander player, and it's part of the game as well.
Yeah, but I think I want to dial it back a bit because I think my approach in recent time, over the years, has been quite aggressive and upfront. I think that's another thing I think I can learn from this is some people, regardless of if they play Commander or not, some people are just shy.
Yeah.
And I think with like politics being a part of the game, that can be a whole reason why someone doesn't want to play Commander in the future. If they go, wow, that was a part of this game that freaked me out and I don't want to play anymore.
And it sort of was like engaged with at a level where the stakes felt so high. And, or, you know, the other thing that can happen is if you're shy and someone is leading the conversation and just like, you know, reeling off all the reasons why someone should do something, you just might not feel as a shy person that you have the tools to adequately debate, really, like debate the politics that's happening.
I don't have the conversation skills, even the vocabulary to be
lay
a part
this
of this
out
conversation.
And to put in a good fight for myself. And so they can tend to sort of just sit there and then suddenly it's like, oh, my stuff got removed because someone convinced someone else to do it. So I think it's really great that you're aware that this can be a problem. I'm not saying it is and always has been.
I think it has been in the past, though.
Right,
I think there has been some situations where that could have been. Don't know for sure. Didn't ask the person.
Sure.
Probably should have. But I'm happy to admit that.
Yeah. No, well, I think being aware of it will make a world of difference.
Yeah.
Definitely.
To the players that I play with and to me as well.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Your turn. I did it. I feel better now.
So many more. I don't always follow our advice.
Okay, the funny thing is, I already kind of knew this one. I think the thing about being a content creator is you say all of this stuff, you preach all of these good things, and then you get into a moment and you're like, oh yeah, no, I didn't even think about that episode at all.
Look, why did I keep this a secret? It's pretty obvious. It kind of goes against the entire premise of the podcast, which is that the Space Commanders send us a directive, we interpret it, we send it out to all of you to help you to improve, and we improve in the process as we learn these new things about ourselves.
It's all a facade.
No, I'm not saying that like all the advice is
never
bogus
follow our
or I
advice,
never follow. I guess I'm saying that like it's some of the advice we give is really hard to follow, you know?
Oh, okay.
Things like, you know, when we've talked about getting tilted and all of the tips we had for getting tilted, like when you are tilted and you're annoyed about something, it's very hard it takes a lot of awareness to go, okay, I'm going to apply the tools that I know will help me right now, you know?
It's one of those easier said than done kind of things.
100%. And, you know, in a similar vein, like we did the Noticing Absence episodes a few episodes ago, and we were talking about, you know, when you look at the cards on the table, you should think about what they represent about people's hands and their strategies and their game plans. And it's like, that's complicated.
That's some high level stuff. And it's funny from an academic perspective, you can read a textbook about Commander gameplay and stuff like that. This podcast is effectively writing textbooks for Commander.
Yeah.
But even academics at the highest level that are studying the interworkings of society and that kind of stuff, they don't fully grasp the concept in practice.
Oh, yeah.
They can see it in theory, but they can't practice it. And that's fair.
Yeah. Or look at the way that pretty much every philosopher ever has lived their life.
Yes.
What they said about morality and how you should live your life and then how it played out in terms of, you know, like drug addictions and being kicked out on the street. Like, you know.
Different things.
Very, very challenging life, but they obviously understood what they should be doing.
I guess I'm kind of with you on this one a little bit. I'll kind of claim this as a bit of a confession.
Okay.
We did an episode ages ago called The Second Threat about how you shouldn't be the first threat, but you should be the second one.
Yep.
I'm always the first threat in the game.
Yeah.
I always screw that up. And everyone points it out every time.
We taught them the tools to describe the problems that we encounter, so they tell us about the problems we're encountering.
I guess that means we're doing a good job,
yeah,
right?
There you go. It's working for all of you, it's not for us. No, it does work. And look, I guess what we can do about this or how we can make the games better moving forwards is basically what my therapist has said when I've said a similar thing where I've gone in and spoken to him and gone like, look, I know all the things I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm not doing them.
Yeah.
And also, like, I feel like I'm wasting my time being here because you told me all the right things to do. And he was like, no, it takes ages to change the way that your brain works and the way that you approach problems. And it's okay to need to check in and continue to learn stuff. So yes, how are you going to make our games better? Just acknowledge that change and learning is a slow process and it takes work, and you won't transform overnight because nobody can. So yeah, and then the same for me personally, like I'm directing it to all of you, but yes, for me, I need to acknowledge that as well, and just keep on actively trying to be a better player while also knowing that it's not going to happen overnight.
And also I think is like a general thing is rely on the players that we play with that do point it out.
Yeah.
Listen to them when they say, oh, didn't you say don't become the first threat? You just deployed a Phyrexian Praetor on turn 5. That's like usually a first threat kind of deal to do. So yeah, maybe just listen to your opponents when they point it out.
Yeah, definitely. All right, your turn again.
All right, we'll do one more and then we'll take a break.
Okay, sounds good.
This kind of relates to your first one, actually.
Yeah.
I really enjoy combos. And sometimes I'll put them in decks, like I put combos in decks, but sometimes, and this is the bit of a confession, I don't deploy them because I feel bad.
Oh, this is very related to my one.
When you were saying it, I was like, oh, this might come up later.
Yeah. So why'd you keep this a secret?
Well, look, mainly because I don't want to upset my play group and mainly you. Because, I know, you've said to me in the past that Tornos has combos in it that are fun and cool and stuff, but, I can see it in your eyes deep down when you lose to me going infinite on turns or, producing near infinite amount of mana to sink into a Memnarch or something like that and start stealing lands. You do get that, that kind of made the game feel a bit shit. And so sometimes I'll see a combo in hand and I don't play it because I'm like, actually, I think the game will be more fun for the rest of the table if I just don't play out this combo.
Right.
And I've done it a few times, but the thing is, I've realized that sometimes I just play cards and not intentionally use them as combo cards, more of a value piece.
Yeah.
Voltaic Key, Kelpie Guide, these cards that untap things, or, cards that do multiple triggers or stuff like that layer on things that aren't necessarily infinite combos, but do combo with other cards, right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes I don't even realize there's a powerful combo, whether it's infinite or not, until it's half of it's in my hand and half of it's on the board. And I'm like, oh shit, I could win the game here.
Yeah.
And it's turn 6 and I'm like, oh, I kind of described this deck as a turn 8, 9 winning deck.
Okay, so part of the problem here is that there's an issue of representation of your deck.
Of my own decks,
because I see what you mean. The synergy pieces you include are often the same cards that would be combo pieces and
correct.
Sometimes are combo pieces in the deck.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think the jumping straight into what I can learn from this and what I can do to make better games and even improve my Rule Zero discussions. There is an incredible website called Commander Spellbook that I neglect so often.
Yeah.
You can literally throw in your Moxfield deck list into Commander Spellbook. It will analyze the list and it will find any combo, infinite or near infinite, that's that can be produced by the cards in your deck. And I chucked in my Tornos deck to this as I'm curious.
Yep.
I thought that the main infinite combo in that deck was the infinite turns with Magistrate Scepter, where I can keep taking turns to put charge counters on it to keep taking turns.
Yep.
There was heaps.
Yeah.
There were cards where I could basically get tons of lands out of my deck.
Right.
By tons of lands, I think it was every basic from my library I can put onto the battlefield.
Wow.
In Is It as well, holy hell. And there's just other stuff where it's I can, steal people's permanents permanently or lock them away and stuff like that.
And stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of an eye-opening thing of okay, wow, I knew that these cards were here, but when you see it, it's this card plus one more equals you win the game.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe I'm misrepresenting this deck a little bit in conversation.
Right. Gotcha.
And then I looked and I was like, okay, well, I have a few tutors in this deck. I have the Inventor's Fair. I have Expedition Map, which tutors a land, which can get Expedition, which can get Inventor's Fair.
Yeah. Look, so plugging the decks into Commander Spellbook will let you at least understand and let you have better Rule Zero conversations. And also, I guess then, when you're close to the win, you'll know you're close to the win rather than sometimes drawing that last piece of the combo and going, oh, I'm about to go off if I play this card.
And I think the other thing is for me, I think I should encourage a little bit more combos or combo players in my play groups.
Right.
And players that I play with more often because I think especially being on this podcast with you, and this is not a detriment to you not liking combos. Walt and I are, believe it or not,
Different people.
Individual humans. Walt and I are not the same person. We occasionally hold hands in public, but that's a different thing. But like, I think that being on this pod with you has made it that people might take some of your opinions and think that I hold the same ones.
Sure.
And I think sometimes people like avoid playing combos with me because they know that Get Commanded has said that they don't like it before.
Right, yeah.
But I think that for me, I'm like, actually, no, I don't mind those higher power tables. I still love casual. I'm not talking about CDH here. Where, yeah, people can win from an infinite combo. I love seeing that interaction. I love seeing them sandbag for a couple of turns to make sure they can deploy it at the right time.
Yep.
So, yeah, maybe I just need to encourage my players to start playing the combos I know that they love as well.
Yeah, sure.
And just kind of build a bit of a culture around it. And maybe also... encourage you, because I think we play the most together. I would say that me and you probably...
The Experiment 50 games showed that, at least for me, yeah.
I think, me and CDH might differ a little bit. We'll see if we do another databased episode. We're still recording games. But yeah, I think maybe saying, okay, Walt, try one of my combo decks. Try Tornos. Try playing Tornos. See if you like playing against another deck that's at the same power level. Because personally, I think for you... it's about balancing power, and it's about making sure that your deck is at the same level as everyone else. Because when you play CDH, you don't care if someone wins at a combo.
No.
So maybe there's a world where we can play two completely different power leveled games where there's no combos in one game and combos in another, and then we can both enjoy both games.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think that, the basic thing of this is, I should really understand what's in my decks.
Yes.
Really understand more.
That's probably step one.
Yeah, and I think there's I've been doing this thing for a while. If I have an infinite combo in the deck, like for example in my Scorpion God deck.
You got Nest of Scarabs and
Yawgmoth.
Yawgmoth, Throne Physician. Yeah.
What I'll say to the table, especially during Rule 0, is like, hey, I've got an infinite in here. If you want, I'll flip one of these cards upside down and it'll be a basic swamp for the rest of the game.
Yep.
Before the game starts, I'll just flip it upside down in the sleeve and say this is now a basic swamp.
It's a pretty easy way to... It doesn't necessarily detract from the power level of the deck massively, but it does detract from the explosiveness of it, where you can't go infinite. Yeah,
because like both cards are synergy pieces on their own.
Yeah,
but
so that individually in the deck, they still work.
So now I get to play with these awesome, powerful synergy pieces, but not necessarily threaten a win from them.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've been talking for about 30 minutes now. I reckon it might be time for a thrifty interlude.
It's a short little, thrifty interlude. It's commonly referred to as a break, and Limp Bizkit famously said you should break stuff. So, Walt, let's break some stuff.
We're going to break some stuff. We've got a bunch more confessions for you, but before that, we're going to hear a little something about a thrifty card. And this week, we're breaking tradition, and James will be assisting me with some dialogue.
Am I going to meet the card merchant?
You're not. I'm sorry to say. Would you like to read the card we're featuring this week?
I do. Funnily enough, we've mentioned Tornos. This is a great card in my Tornos
absolutely
artifact deck.
Busted in there.
It's so much fun. It's Mimic Vat. For 3 generic mana, you'll get an artifact that says Imprint. Whenever a non-token creature dies, you may exile that card. If you do, return each other card exiled with Mimic Vat to its owner's graveyard. Sounds complicated. Basically, whenever a non-token dies, you put the card under it. If there was already a card under Mimic Vat,
it goes back to the graveyard.
Put that back to your opponent's graveyard.
Yep.
Then you can pay 3 generic and tap Mimic Vat and create a token that's a copy of a card exiled with Mimic Vat. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. I just can't believe she's gone.
Oh, yes. A true shame. Yeah. Anyway.
What are you doing?
I'm putting her in my vat.
What?
My vat. She'll be back in a sec.
She's dead, you moron!
Not anymore. Look!
Why is she running around like that?
The vat makes her faster. It's pretty dope, not gonna lie.
I don't want her to be faster. She's my nan, not a sprinter.
Well, it's just for the day.
Oh, it's just a part-time resurrection, is it? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, just like he did, actually. You don't have any boulders you need moved, do you? Get budgeted! 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 Budgeted!
That's the first 50 Thursdays that has made me laugh and not go, what the fuck just happened? I'm like totally fine with you resurrecting me, Nan, if you want.
Just for the day, though.
Just like
Part-time
Jesus.
resurrection.
Just quickly before we go into this, just on the topic we were talking about before about combos and stuff, just in the break, Walt and I were like, let's chuck Mimic Vac into Commander Spellbook, shall we?
Yep.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
In your own free time, check it out. Commander Spellbook, Mimic Vat.
It's absolutely silly the things you can do with that card.
That card is busted.
Yeah, absolutely
and
busted.
super cheap.
Yeah. And if you enjoyed that and you like to feel thrifty, and especially if you like to feel thrifty on a Thursday, I released those in text form in the Greensboro Commander Community Discord server. There's a Thrifty Thursdays channel. You can check them out, and you can check out all the other ones that I've written. It's the little pinned thing up the top.
Yeah, this is definitely the most unhinged episode we've recorded in a while, but it's all about confessing our sins.
Yes,
it's very serious. We've got
true.
secrets to divulge.
We do, and I think it's my
Yeah, I
turn
did the last
again.
one before the break.
Okay.
What's the next one?
This one will not be too shocking to people who've listened to our podcast for a while, because we did a whole episode on this, but I'm still going to say it. I am tired of long Commander games.
I think this is like... I can see why you're not actively telling the playgroup or talking more about this, because it is...
No.
I think there are a lot of people that love the battle cruiser style, sit down for 3 hours...
Ugh.
3 hours to me is just, I'm with you, is what I'm saying.
If I've got 3 hours, I'd rather play D&D. Or,
fair.
3 hours of one thing.
Yeah.
Look, why'd I keep this a secret? It's pretty obvious. I don't want to be the guy who's getting mad when the game goes long. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want someone to like cast the third board wipe and go like, oh, you know, like it's
Be
how
that, again?
Yeah.
Really? Farewell? What an include
Yeah.
in your deck? Ugh.
it's how I feel on the inside,
Yeah.
but it doesn't help anyone to just like rage at people. And look, the other thing is, I really enjoy low-powered games, and I kind of don't want to admit that those games of that power level are the ones that often go really long.
You're so right. It for sure is the games that don't end in like combos or really powerful effects. These low-powered games that will see a board wipe happen more often, because the way most low-powered games will win is through combat damage, and it's usually pretty fair combat damage as well. So yeah, if you live in that sphere of Commander,
which I said, I'm avoid the high power stuff. I want the low powered stuff, but you have to come to terms with the fact that the games can go so long. I don't think they have to. And so I'm going to say that the way to make the games better with this in mind,
sure.
that I don't like
what
these
can
long
we learn
games.
from this? The lesson of all this.
I haven't used the Commander clock in a while, and I think it might be time to bring it back.
Oh yeah, we went through a bit of a phase, specifically after the episode where we talked about game length, where we tried to include it in more games.
Well, when I was doing the 50 games data, I had tracked whether I used the clock or not, and I don't know if you all remember, but one of the things that we looked at was the average length of a game and whether the clock had an effect on it. And it had a huge effect on the average length of a game, whether the clock was used or not. I guess I started to feel bad that I was imposing this on people, because some people were getting really nervous and they would tell me so after the game. They'd be like, look, the clock made me make actions so quickly I felt like I couldn't think.
Made me misplay.
Yeah, I made misplays because I was in such a rush. And so I was like, I don't want to force people to do that. But then the reality is, as a result, not blaming these people, but the result of not using the clock and of people playing in this power level is that the games, they don't have to, but they can go for 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, I think this is the thing with the Commander clock, is that it's really good in theory, but in practice, it does have this weird effect on the quality of game. Like, the quantity of game is shorter.
Yes.
But the quality of the game shifts because people are making, whether it's like, you know, bad game decisions because they're afraid of the time, or if it's, you know, and this is the other thing we found from the 50 data, is the elimination by the clock is actually pretty low. People just it's like a psychological effect when the clock's in play. It makes the game shorter because people go for wins quicker. They tend to sandbag less and all that kind of stuff.
People just sort of play something out and try it.
Go for it because you've got 10 minutes.
Yeah. Whereas sometimes I think, and I'm certainly someone who's like this, I will wait until I know for sure what my right decision is. And the reality is, Magic is really complicated, and you very rarely know exactly what your right decision is, especially in a Commander game when there's people's boards. boards and
Yeah.
deciding where to remove things. Like that's the purpose of this podcast is helping you with some of that stuff.
Well, if we had a chess podcast, it would be really easy because chess is a solved game. A computer has figured out the best move in every single situation, every single time. Commander is not chess.
No.
It can't be solved ever.
No, it's true. So yeah, I guess the other thing that I think I could probably do, and that you've pointed out to me before about some of the decks I built recently, some of my decks need better win cons.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm really
Maybe
practicing.
that's a confession in of itself.
It's a sub confession for sure. I need to practice what I preach. We tell people on this podcast like include win cons. You need to bring the game to an end. I mean, episode 1 of our podcast was have a plan for bringing the game to an end. Yeah, I probably need a couple more win cons in some of my decks that tend to dirtle a bit, especially my Babala Saga deck and absolutely my Catilda and Lear deck.
The Catilda and Lear deck is the one that I was like actively thinking about when you were saying that. I was like, that's a deck that it does a lot of mid-game stuff and it does a lot of early game stuff, but does basically nothing in the late game.
I did finally bite the bullet and just put actual factual overrun in the deck because for 10 mana, if you have it, which you can in that deck because it ramps pretty well.
Cast it, flash it back.
And you need more than 10 because you got to cast a human. So 11 or more.
two mana human, probably minimum, so 12 mana.
Yep.
You should win the game off 12 mana.
You should win the game with 12 mana, and now I can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I need to definitely include some more win cons as well.
Okay, that's fair. That's a good lesson. I think that my next confession kind of ties to this.
Oh, okay.
But it's a bit of like I also am tired of games going long. But my confession is that I will often elect to lose rather than extending the game even further.
Oh, so you're one of the okay, the writing's on the wall, I'm not going to cast this board wipe. Is that, you're that kind of a...
I'm that guy that, I know, and this is the thing, I usually don't reveal it because I don't want to take the win away from my opponent. I don't want to be like, I could have beaten you if I did, if I had one more mana.
No, not good to be that. So why do you think you've kept this a secret? I guess that's one reason right there.
I don't want to be that guy, you know, and I also don't want to be the guy that makes the game longer. Like, you have that opinion of you hate long games. Lots of people hate sitting down for 3-4 hour games of Commander, especially when there's already been 2 board wipes. If I draw my board wipe and it's like probably the right decision to do a board wipe, if I cast it again, I'm going to get people groan at me, and I don't want that groan. The other reason I keep this a secret is because I don't want to disrespect the integrity of the game.
This is sort of what you said before, right? Like, you don't want someone to feel like, oh, the game is now feels cheapened. The win is cheapened by the fact that James could have stopped it. So you're better off just being like, good game.
Good game.
Yeah.
So, but the thing, and I think this is the thing that I can learn and make better game decisions and improve on, because I still hold the opinion that I don't want this game to drag on for another hour. I'd rather someone win.
Yeah.
The things that I've started doing is try and win myself instead of stop my opponent from winning. So if I have the board wipe in hand, the first thing that I check for is, can I win? And this is, funnily enough, I brought up chess just before. This is something I learned from chess. There's a lot of chess theory that when it's your turn in chess, the order in which you should look for things is you check for checks. Checks being in chess where you put the king in a position where it has to move, or
a piece has to move in some way
to defend the king. Then you look for captures, and then you look for defense.
Right.
So in that order, you look for going for a win, setting up a win, or hurting your opponents more, and then stopping your opponent winning.
This is probably why I am absolutely awful at chess, and also why maybe I contribute to the games going long. When I play chess, I'm like, I've got to make sure I don't lose any pieces.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I'm looking for. And of course, if you spend the whole game trying to protect your pieces, you cannot. And also, you'll never win if you're just like, your bishop is about to check the king and you're like, oh, but the horse might take it. Better move it.
It's also a clear sign you don't play chess because you just called it a horse.
I realized after I said it. I'm aware it's called a knight.
The horsey.
But it's a horse. Look at the piece and tell me that there's a man on that horse. It's a horse.
Some chess pieces do. My Star Wars chess set has...
I
think it's a TIE fighter.
I had a Star Wars... No, the TIE fighters are the pawns.
I think no, mine was the pawns in mine were stormtroopers.
Oh, I must have had a different one.
I think there's probably tons.
I think I played one where all the it was Rebels versus Empire, and the Rebels were all of the pawns were X-wings, and all of the pawns were and the TIE fighters.
I'm assuming the king and queen were Darth Vader and Sidious.
Yes, correct. Naturally. I think Vader was the queen, which
absolute queen, slay Vader,
slay Vader, Vader slay.
Look at those boots.
But I'm not going.
We've gone so far.
I know.
Topic.
Okay,
but
sorry. Yes, you got to look for the win and not survival, is what you said.
And I think that's something that I've started doing. But the other thing that I can do to help me look for that win is leverage politics in that moment. Like, start revealing cards in my hand, which is a legal game action. I could, there's this world where I draw that board wipe, and the opponent that's about to win, I can go, wow, okay. Here's a card in my hand. Here's the blasphemous act.
Oh.
I could do this, or we can go 1v1. You can kill the opponents, and we go 1v1. I board wipe next turn, and then do you think you can battle me one-on-one?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I can do. That might be contentious. I'm not sure if revealing a card in hand.
That, actually. I think I like it, though, if I was making the deal. Like, let's say I've got the winning board.
So you've got a billion tokens.
Yeah, you've drawn the board wipe, and you're like, hey, I've got this board wipe. Let's go one-on-one. I would be going, sure thing, you can't ever board wipe.
Whoa. See, that's
I'm not going to say, wait a turn. I'm not going to be like, yeah, I'll be your pawn and attack out over here, and then next turn you get to win. I'd be like, no. This blasphemous act never gets cast, and I will kill your two opponents this next turn, but you got to find your win.
You got to find an out that doesn't
my board.
Resolve that spell.
Yeah.
See, I love when politics can make a game more fair, like what I was talking about in the first half of the episode. I use politics to make a game more fair instead of dragging it out even more, or guaranteeing a win or guaranteeing your survival, that kind of thing.
It's more fair and it's more memorable as well.
Yeah, that's a really good, that scenario, which is a pretty believable scenario.
Yeah.
I've got a blasphemous act in hand and Walt's got a board full of tokens.
Yeah, that has happened several times.
That's happened a million times. I love the idea of that being the debate.
Well, but also the win is so much more memorable as a result. I think I've told you this story. I've probably told it on the podcast before.
Is this the Seguin?
Yeah.
With the, I love
someone
this story.
was gonna I think blow up Seguin, or they were gonna do something to my board. I was clearly in the lead with my Seguin deck. I was miles ahead, and they were like, I feel like I have to stop you. And I was like, I will literally never attack you for the rest of the game with Seguin. And he was like, okay, and didn't board wipe or didn't remove my stuff or whatever. I killed the other two players, and it took 6 more turns because I had to suit up every other knight in the deck, but I never attacked with Seguin, and I still got the win. And that's a story that sticks out. That's how many games of Commander have I played in the last, 3 years? Well, hundreds, we know.
Hundreds, yeah.
And that still sticks out. That was at least a year and a half ago now.
Yeah, I also reckon I could probably include the Commander clock thinking about it as well.
Yeah.
Maybe just, people trying to go for wins is incentivized by the clock.
Yeah. And you holding the board wipe, people might respect that decision more with the clock in mind. They might be like, oh, you've got 5 minutes left. If you board wipe, you're not going to win either.
Yeah. And I think it's about that mutual respect at the table of making sure people know that I'm not trying to extend the game. I'm trying to win the game. And that's maybe another confession is I just hate decks that make the game go forever.
Yeah. No, I respect that. My turn again.
Yeah. All right, well, let's do one more each. We've got time for one more each.
Yeah. This is such an out for me specifically. Maybe a little bit of hot take almost. My busted niche cards are probably not both busted and niche.
Okay, are we talking specifically about Thrifty Interlude, Thrifty Thursday cards?
It's outing me a bit.
Because that's part of your whole character in our world.
I want to clarify. So there are truly busted cards in our format, but they are expensive and they are not niche.
Okay, we're talking about cards Force of Will.
Yes.
That's a busted card.
We know it's busted. Yeah. It's not niche, right?
Yeah, sure.
Then there are people who claim that certain cards are niche because they're not the effect. So for instance, I remember seeing an episode of a podcast. I'm not going to say who because I don't want to out them. But there were...
Fellow content creators, yes. You shall remain anonymous.
But they were basically talking about ways you can make your deck a bit alternative. Okay. And they were rather than play Sylvan Library, play Miri's Guile.
What's Miri's Guile?
Miri's Guile is a 1-mana enchantment for a green. machine where in your upkeep you look at the top 3 cards of your library and put them back in any order.
Oh, so it's kind of like a weird Sensei's Divining Top at every upkeep.
Well, it's also like a Sylvan Library. You know, like Sylvan Library,
Yeah.
if you're not paying the life, is look at 3 cards, put 2 back on top. Really.
Basically, yeah.
But it costs 1 less. Anyway, they were like, this is this cool niche thing. And then I looked it up and I was like, this card is $30. Clearly, it's not very niche.
Because it's a Sylvan Library substitute.
Yes.
Players that are looking to play Sylvan Library but can't afford the $70
Yes.
of a Sylvan Library go, hey, Miri's Guile is kind of the same thing. I'll just run that.
Exactly right. But so then, like, okay, so that's busted, right? That's the busted category.
Sure.
So then, but then the cards that are actually niche, you know, like not Miri's Guile, like
Like the cards that are like only exist in this one deck.
yeah, like Teferi's Veil, you know.
Yo, that is a niche card.
The enchantment in my Arami deck, there's like 4 decks ever that want to play this card. It's a 2-mana enchantment that says whenever a creature you control attacks, it phases out at end of combat. Amazing in an Arami deck because when creatures are phased out, they're treated as if they don't exist, but their triggers still resolve. So those creatures have a delayed trigger on the stack that says, in the end step, sacrifice this creature. Can't happen because they're phased out, but the trigger resolves, so you just keep those creatures forever.
Yep.
So good in only Arami. That card is niche because it's bad.
Yeah.
The
in
fact that
any
it's good,
other deck,
yes.
it is a bad card.
Having your creatures cease to exist after they attack is usually not what you want to be doing in Magic and in Commander.
There's probably like one other deck, maybe a deck where it like cares about creatures attacking, but you don't care about the damage.
Totally.
Like, maybe if you've got like a whenever a creature attacks, do a thing trigger.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a deck that exists.
There are phasing decks. I know there's cards that care about things phasing in and out, like totally put it in there.
Okay.
But I'm saying like it's niche. It's not busted. You know what I mean? I don't think that the cards that I might tell you, like I've found this busted niche card, I'm lying. There are not cards that are both busted and, it's so rare. And then
one is busted and niche.
It's really, really rare.
Yeah.
So why'd I keep this a secret? Obviously, Thrifty Thursdays is built on the idea that there are cards you haven't heard of that you need to play. But the other kind of subset of this is I want to feel like my decks are completely unique. And so
Yeah.
I don't like playing cards in multiple decks of mine. If I can find an alternative to a removal spell or an alternative to a ramp spell in one of my other decks, so I don't have overlap between different decks,
Yeah.
I will try to do that because I don't like the feeling of building the same decks over and over
fair.
again.
So that's part of your character.
Yeah.
It's you as a Commander player character. You have you're trying to show that you're a very unique deck builder.
Yes.
And I get why you're keeping this a secret.
And so I want to live in this world where I found, busted niche rampant rampant growth.
Yeah, that
I
one.
found busted niche rampant growth in the form of Edge of Autumn.
the
The reality is rampant growth that you can't cast after you have 5 lands, even if it can cycle to draw a card, is probably kind of bad.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. All right. So what? I get it. You're not good at picking cards. I get it. We get it now, Walt. You're a terrible deck builder. But
They're still
that's not what I'm saying.
interesting.
They're still interesting.
They're just not both busted and niche. They're niche, and I think they're cool, and they're like fun alternatives. They're not busted.
Right. So like throwing them into some decks is great. But
Yes.
What's the lesson here?
Sure.
What can you learn? What can you do better as a Commander player when you're building decks and looking at cards or even evaluating cards?
Sure.
What's the lesson?
Look, I think first off, it's okay to play staples. Like, don't feel like you're being uncreative because you picked Rampant Growth and Disenchant. Like, they're staples for a reason. They're great cards that are cheap and affordable and efficient. Like,
Even the busted cards, like if you're running a Smothering Tithe, and because you've got one and can afford one, Smothering Tithe's a sick card.
if it's
Play
good
it.
in the deck, like by all means, do that. And it's okay to play staples if that's what you want to do. But also, and this is more specifically for me, you can love niche cards and think they're fun and interesting and want to play them, and also acknowledge that they're bad.
Okay, you don't have to go out of your way to justify why it's good.
And look, like most of the time when someone's like, when I post the Thrifty Thursdays in the Discord and someone will reply and be like, hey, isn't this kind of worse Reanimate? I'm always like, yes, but it's cheap.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole point.
Okay.
And so, like it's okay to live in this world where there are fun and different and alternative versions of effects that you might think are interesting. And also you can just be upfront and be like, I know it's not Reanimate. Reanimate is Reanimate.
That's why it's played in goddamn nearly every black deck that exists.
You cannot compete with Reanimate, so why try, basically?
I getcha. All right.
We got time for one more?
One more, I reckon. God, well, this also relates back to your one before where you said you don't take our advice, but I've got a very specific piece of advice that I don't follow.
Sure.
I feel really bad about it. I'm not going to say always. I'm going to say 80% to 90% of the time.
Okay.
Ramp, even if on turns 1 through 3, I could play an impactful spell. And I'd like to put a caveat to this and apologize profusely to pro Magic Hall of Famer Sam Black. I apologize.
So the context of this secret is obviously the mana curvy episode.
Yeah.
Where, look, to be fair, we didn't say you must build a deck like this, but we explored the possibility
of decks that run less ramp.
Yes, but more impactful spells in low mana value slots.
Yeah, so if you were to look at your decks on Moxfield, have a look at the deck sorted and arranged by your mana curve.
Yeah.
Because I would have it a guess that there are cards in the 1 to 2, maybe 3 mana slot that mostly ramp. If not, that's all they do.
Yeah.
And we found that from that episode, and we were like, actually, there are reasons to run cards like, really early really early low drop pieces that affect the game early.
Yeah.
And you can see why this is such a big thing. Like, look at CEDH decks, for example. They run Esper Sentinel very frequently because it's a cracked card and that impacts the board really early. So
and we even, like, in that episode, like, we were looking at, what's the Demir Zombies precon? Wilhelt the Rock Cleaver. And we were like, okay, this is not a deck that wants to cast its commander as early as possible.
No.
Because you want to have zombies. You want to have stuff to sacrifice.
So low to the ground zombies is what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
And then on turn 5...
Yeah.
When you've got 5 mana, just by hitting a land drop every turn, you can cast your commander, and then you're still doing the thing on curve.
Yeah. So basically, we were just saying you don't have to ramp. But yeah, so you're saying even if you have a good play, so it's turn 1 through 3, you've got that Esper Sentinel, you've got that... I mean, Esper Sentinel's a turn 1, so maybe that's not a good example. But let's say turn 2, you've got an Arcane Signet.
Or a Blind Obedience, for example.
Oh, okay. So you've got Blind Obedience or Arcane Signet. You will choose Arcane Signet every day of the week.
Pretty much. I said not every day of the week. I'll probably choose it Monday through Friday, but Saturdays, Sundays, I'll let my hair down a bit and play more impactfully. I'm saying like 80 to 90% of the time I'll elect to ramp. And I think that... Yeah, obviously I kept this a secret because we did a whole friggin' episode on how we should go about that differently.
Sure.
The thing is, though, like, my mana curves in my decks, the way I build, even listening to our own advice and trying to include more impactful 1-drops, 2-drops, and 3-drops, I still have a pretty high mana curve in my decks. That's just what I'm seeing. I actually went on my Moxfield the other day and had a look. Yeah, my average mana curve is still sitting at that 3.5 kind of an up section. And I'm like, okay, well... No wonder why I have this incentive to ramp is because I want to be able to play those splashy spells that I included.
Yeah, sure.
I will also highlight, this is casual focused, but this is really bad and this is really outing me as a bad player, even though we just commentated on a tournament.
Yeah.
I will sometimes do this in CDH, and that is a sin.
Blasphemy.
You should, if you've got a 2-drop that actually affects the game, like
you've got a Cursed Totem.
Or a Drannith Magistrate, something like that. Don't play your Signet, play that instead.
Yeah, you should be deploying stacks pieces.
So obviously I don't want to admit that because I want some credibility to the fact that I top forward in a CDH tournament.
You've still got it. We respect you. That makes sense. So how do we come out of this, do you think? What's your way of learning from the fact that you tend to ramp even when it might not be the right thing to do?
I think it's practice makes perfect. I think genuinely that's the big thing. I mean, like, obviously looking at our advice, I've followed a lot of that advice from a deck building perspective. I've looked at my mana curve quite specifically. I've really tried to reduce it. We found when we did that episode, there were some of my decks that were sitting at 4 as an average mana curve. And like I really, really did try and reduce it. So I think that I'm following our advice to a certain extent. It's just in practice. And I think I just need to practice it a little bit more. And I think that's totally fair. And I think that, sometimes in the early turns, I'm so obsessed with sequencing. I'm so obsessed with things like, the order in which I play my lands or ramp out or get access to colors or, fix my mana in that way, that I forget that 3 people are doing things as well. Whether they're doing the same thing as me or making impactful plays, I think that the thing that I need to get better on is tilting my head upwards and looking across the table through turns 1 through 3.
Yep.
That's the thing that I think I need to get better on.
That's fair. Look, I agree. That's a good thing to focus on fixing. I don't think you need to always, because there's something to be said for the fact that you build your decks. Like, I know you said your curve is really high and that's why maybe you need to lower it. But also, because your curve is so high, ramp is better.
Yes, if I do want to play those splashy spells, I should be ramping. You're right. Yeah.
I guess I think it's a good thing to aim for, but also I think it's okay to acknowledge, like, okay, I'm a bit of a Timmy. I like my big splashy plays, and I like having the mana to make those splashy plays. Like, we've talked before about the difference in the way that we build decks. You do just play like 15 rocks in your decks if you can. I think that's fine. Like, I think it's okay to build at a high curve if you have the mana to justify it. Because that was the main thing we found. It's like, oh my god, I have this deck that has like a 3.8 average mana curve, and I have 9 pieces of ramp in here. It's just not going to work, you know?
I think, the way I'm visualizing it is inside me there are 2 wolves. One is a Spike, one is a Timmy. And sometimes the Timmy is just growling a little bit louder.
That makes sense.
All right. Look, we all have things that only we know. The small details about ourselves that we don't want others to notice. And that's okay. However, acknowledging them, and granted you don't have to do this on a podcast, allows you to think about what you can change. And change can be good, especially if it makes others around you happier and you happier within yourself. So, Space Commanders, command received. I forgot to salute. I had to, for the first time
my God.
ever, I think, I didn't put my hand to my
and
head.
from the heavens, a beam
Laser
of
beam.
light. James is dead. Get Commanded is now just me being strange. Listeners.
Pretty much what it was already.
I mean, not wrong. Do you feel commanded? What do you think of our confessions? And if you have any you'd like to fess up, we welcome them, of course, by getting in touch with us in a bunch of different ways. Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Get Commanded on all those platforms. You can come hang out on Twitch, twitch.tv/Get Commanded, or you can go hang out in the Greensboro Commander Community Discord server, which is linked in the show notes. There's a bunch of cool things that we do in there and a bunch of really great people in there that you can talk to.
Yeah, for sure. And if you like the content Walt and I produce and want to reward us for fessing up in this episode, you can do that directly via Patreon to say thank you for confessing all your secrets. It's linked in the show notes. It is really the best way to support the content that Walt and I make, and it will go straight back into the podcast. We've bought lots of great things just recently for the podcast with our Patreon money, like a new webcam for streaming, all of this kind of stuff. And also, we shout you out every episode, so we'd like to thank our patrons, Stella Tam, Fuzzy, Bottomless Potamus, and Fraser, and we'd like to make a very special shout out to Fletcher Cutting and Wizard Down Under for supporting us in the Space Commander tier. I apologize for not saluting. You are the best.
I hope they forgive you.
Yeah.
And thanks to Palms Off Gaming. They sponsor this podcast. They make some really, really outstanding deck boxes, sleeves, binders, and all the good gaming goodies that you will need to protect your decks and your cool cards. You can check them out at palmsoffgaming.com.au/#GetCommand, and you'll get 10% off your purchase and support us at the same time. So that's palmsoffgaming.com.au/#GetCommanded.
Yeah, go follow their Insta. We might make an appearance on there soon. We're actually
yeah.
about to do something for them.
Which will probably, honestly, by the time this podcast comes out, it might already be out there. So yes, go check out Palms Off on Insta.
See if you can spot us on their page.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's all the magic. I feel very exposed. I'd like to go back to a safe space.
A safe space, sure.
It's your turn this week. Where are we planeswalking to this week?
We're planeswalking to a very safe space for queer people. It's RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yes!
We were amazed going back through the archives to find we've never talked about this in a Planeswalk before, because we were deeply obsessed with this show during lockdown.
This was a weird, a kind of ritual that we had after dinner when we were living together in lockdown. Now, I want to highlight, I personally am a huge anti-reality TV show person. However, I fucking love RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yep, it is like if you're going to pick one, pick this one. It is so good. So I just finished watching RuPaul's Drag Race
Should we
UK.
actually, for people that don't know, tell them what Drag Race is.
Oh my God,
like, if
the
you're
uninitiated.
If you're queer, you probably know what RuPaul's Drag Race is.
You either watch it or at least know about it. But yes, so RuPaul's Drag Race is a reality TV show where drag queens come on and compete in a series of challenges. They kind of Survivor style get eliminated one per week, and they do basically the things that drag queens do. So they do acting, they do singing, they do dancing, they make a lot of really outstanding outfits.
Yeah.
They do catwalks.
The costumes are like my favorite. When they have to do like, there's a cat-themed catwalk that they have to do. And they like build a cat costume.
Sometimes they have to make it in like a day. They've got to make an outfit and sell it on the main stage. And they also then lip sync. And the main place they lip sync is actually when they're about to be eliminated. The two bottom queens of the week have a lip sync song they've learned and they have to out lip sync each other.
And it's always introduced lip sync for your life.
Yeah, for your life. Yeah.
So good.
Anyway, they have, there's like 18 seasons of regular Drag Race in US. There's also been a few seasons of All Stars, which is exactly what you'd expect. They've also done some ones overseas. So I haven't seen RuPaul's Drag Race Down Under, which is the Australian one.
Yeah, I've still yet to watch that one.
I think they're like halfway through the second season of that. But I just finished watching with my partner RuPaul's Drag Race UK Season 1.
I actually had no idea they did a UK one.
Oh, mate. I thought it was like absolutely hysterical. You, as someone who was born in the UK and whose parents are from the UK, I reckon you would find it absolutely hysterical.
Are there drag queens with like Lancashire accents?
Oh, mate, there's everything. There was a Liverpool, someone from Liverpool. There was
Liverpudlian.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yep. Talking with a Scouse accent. There was, oh my God, there's someone from like, Birmingham and anyway.
The Birmingham drag queen?
Yeah, there was someone from Northern Ireland. Oh my God, that accent is like next level.
Yeah.
There's like a particular sound.
Indistinguishable.
There's like, when they say the word, like no, like I know that Australians have a funny way.
No.
And you guys love laughing us. No. But Irish drag queen would say it like, no.
No.
I know about that. Like it's like so weird.
Okay.
Such a strange accent.
I gotta watch this just for the accents and drag queens.
It was so good. Like their snatch game, which is when they do impressions. They do a whole like panel, like separate panel show within the show.
They do like they basically drag queen as celebrities. So like one of them will drag queen as like Kim Kardashian.
Yes.
And they will put on the character of Kim Kardashian and play it up for this panel game show, but in character. It's so funny. It is hilarious.
So for a long time, they only did women because there was sort of like a few bits of pushback when people like played men or like wore sort of masculine outfits on the main stage. People were like, you're not a drag queen anymore. Like you have to be, it's got to be femme looking. That over time, that perception has changed. And RuPaul's Drag Race UK comes out after like, I think there was like 8 seasons of regular Drag Race at this point.
Well, I've not watched so much. We watched like 3 seasons in lockdown, but I need to catch up.
But basically the attitude towards playing a man had softened a lot by this time. So on Snatch Game, I won't spoil too much, but someone does Donald Trump, and it is the funniest thing. It's comfortably the funniest Snatch Game I've ever seen because she's doing Donald Trump and someone else is doing Margaret Thatcher.
No.
And they integrate, they interact with one another, and it is exactly how you would expect Donald Trump and Margaret Thatcher to interact. Absolutely hysterically funny. Anyway, it was
that's gold. I gotta watch this.
Yeah, it was the usual fun time of Drag Race where you get to it's reality TV and all the goofy fun things that reality TV offers, but in a really amazing queer space where people are expressing themselves, and as a performer, getting to see people sing and dance and do comedy. If you're going to pick one reality TV show, seriously, watch this one.
Yeah. Just before we go, though, I do want to highlight the fact that Walt and I are both queer men, and we've done a lot of work in making this podcast very clearly an ally space where you feel comfortable. If you are queer and you've found solace in our podcast and you feel like we're content creators you can relate to, please message Walt and I directly on Discord. We'd love to hear about that. It's something we really try to do. It was just something we were talking about just before the second half of this episode. We're really proud of it.
It's really important to us that people know that we're not just like passive allies. We're like actively here for you. So
and members of the community ourselves.
Yeah. So if you find us comfy, then we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. It'll make us incredibly happy.
There's literally no ulterior motive. We don't need to hear like anything from you except like, hey, I like you. And we'll be like, like, thanks. We like you too.
Oh, sweet. Cheers.
And that's enough.
Thank you.
Anyway, that's all we have time for. So we'll see you next Friday for another transmission from the Space Commanders.
Goodbye, Commander Players.
Boy.